Can you imagine what Brazil was like 100 years ago in the distant year of 1925? What life, politics, and everyday life were like for Brazilians at that time? Starting with politics, Brazil in 1925 was at the height of the so-called Old Republic. The system was dominated by rural oligarchies, with the states of São Paulo and Minas Gerais alternating power in the famous Café com Leite policy. The economy was mostly agricultural, with coffee as the main export product. Imagine a country where the cities were small and a large part of the population lived in the countryside, working on farms and plantations. Society also had its peculiarities. The Brazilian population in 1925 was around 30 million people, a much smaller number than the more than 200 million today. The big cities, such as São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, were beginning to modernize, but still had colonial characteristics. On the streets, you would find donkey-drawn streetcars, open-air markets, and men wearing suits and hats, even in the heat. What about technology? In 1925, radio was beginning to gain ground as the main means of communication. It was a time of great advances in education and culture, with the Week of Modern Art, which had taken place just 3 years earlier in 1922. It was the beginning of a new artistic and cultural mentality. But there were still many challenges, such as high illiteracy rates and a deeply unequal society. Finally, it's impossible not to mention transportation and infrastructure. Traveling around Brazil was an adventure. Roads were precarious and railroads were the main means of transportation between regions. There were no big airports like there are today, and cars were a luxury for very few. Looking back a century, Brazil was so different from today that it seems like a timeless memory.